Good afternoon, everybody. Hello, everybody who's here with us in fourth space. I'd like to welcome everybody into the corner I'm standing here by the main entrance, just on the one side of our workshop space, and any other guests we have here with us in the space to gather around me, wherever you can see me, so I can just make a few opening remarks about being here. And we also have the launch of a publication, which you'll hear more about in a few minutes. I'm going to keep this fairly brief. For those of you who weren't here this morning, we kicked off this week Scenographies of Site Writing Across the Americas with a workshop. So there's a few of us that are gathering here today that have been here already this morning, and welcome to all of you who weren't here with us this morning. So my name is Shimona Jansen, for those of you who don't know me, but I think we all kind of do know each other. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Theatre and University Research Chair in Performative Urbanism. And part of the residency here at Fourth Space is to keep pushing, exploring, and deepening my interests, and also the growing interests of graduate and undergraduate students that I work with. And my screen just went blank. But what I'd like to do is, for bienvenue, right? Bienvenidas, boas-vindas, welcome. We are gathered here on Turtle Island, Canada, in Montreal, which means broken in two for the way the river breaks around the island. In these unsettled settlements, unceded settlements, the erasure of the indigenous peoples, their knowledges, languages, and cultures, are a legacy of colonial structures. So I would like to begin by acknowledging that Concordia University, and where we are here today at Fourth Space, is located on unceded indigenous lands. The Kanagahaga Nation is recognized as the custodians of the lands and waters in which we gather today. And Montreal is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations. And today, it is home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. And while we are here, we will and do respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future in our ongoing relationships with the Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. I want to say something really briefly about the ethos of this residency, and I really do mean that, and part of that's inspired by the way that Doug and Anna, who are the caretakers of this space and are hosting us with Mackay and Jax and Max, who may not be here today. So I want to give a big shout out to them for actually being our hosts, that you are around. I was really inspired by the way that you're thinking about using Fourth Space as really a studio space. You guys do so many different events, and I love the idea that we can actually kind of be messy here and not perfect and be in a process. So that really is perfect in terms of this joining together, this kind of communion intersection of the Hemispheric Encounters Project, and you'll hear more about that, which is I have thanks for that, and the Kirk that I'm running in Performative Urbanism. And I'd like to think of our time here, and those of you who are guests here, to also pass on to others to come by and see us. I would really like to think about how we're sharing this location, and I said this a bit earlier, and how we think about being here as its own kind of site writing and critical spatial practice, to use Jane Rendell's terms. So I have a couple of thank yous, big thank yous. First of all, to Fourth Space, the folks here, of course, Laura Levin, Tracy Tidwell, Selena Couture, Sergio Andrade. So you guys are, the Hemispheric team. I'm part of that Hemispheric team. Mark is part of the Hemispheric team. But a lot of this, it came together because of us meeting over many months to organize this, bring those of you who aren't from Montreal here, find the budget to do that. So we're here because of your support of this vision of us being together and finding out what happens when we're together here. I'd like to thank Mark Sussman, Director of the Center for Interdisciplinary Studies in Society and Culture, for which I am a graduate, for also supporting this event. Thank you, Mark, and thank you for being here. To the other ecology cluster members, Rowan Crow is here. Kim was here, Kim Sawchuk, and Peter Kaczynski. So like being here, your presence here, your participation in this is a heartfelt thanks for being here. And I'm really looking forward to the week with you all. And last but not least is Adela, where are you? So Adela Goldbard and I started working on this in April, May, and none of this would be happening without you. So I just want a big shout out to Adela for everything. We're a good team. And it also wouldn't be happening without the artists and the other guests that are here. And you're in different kinds of combinations of being here. And over the course of the week, you'll get to know each other and through this encounter of being here. And I think I probably forgot somebody or something. Am I forgetting something? Shout out for now, or okay. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Laura Levin and Sunita Nigam, because they have an announcement to make and a beautiful publication for us to also engage with throughout the week.
Thank you so much, Shona. I want to thank Shona and Adela for the incredible work that they put into this residency. I think your vision for this residency is incredible, and I'm looking forward to learning from all of you this week. I want to thank Force Space for hosting us, Tracy for being an incredible organizer. I can't find Tracy, but incredible organizer of this as well as the directors of the Ecologies Research Cluster, Selena and Sergio, and all of the members of Hemispheric Encounters who are here, and all the people who came to be part of this launch today. I also want to thank University of Toronto Press, that's helping to fund part of this little launch, and Canadian Theatre Review, and to all the amazing authors that contributed to our issue. And yeah, I'm Laura. I'm a professor at York University in the Theatre and Performance Studies program, and also the director of Hemispheric Encounters, which is a project which is attempting to think about how performance can be used as a tool for addressing shared human rights and environmental justice issues across the Americas. And I'm going to pass things over to my amazing co-editor, Sunita. Before I do, though, I just want to thank Sunita for being an incredible collaborator on this particular journal issue. I've learned so much from Sunita over the last couple of years. We have not seen each other in person in years and years and years, but we're frequently in conversation, so this feels amazing.
Thanks so much, Laura. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Sunita Nigam, and I'm an adjunct professor in theater and performance studies, as well as a consultant in the community sector across Quebec. I'm very excited to be launching this special issue of Canadian Theatre Review on the topic of performance and housing with Laura today, which is the result of many generative conversations about housing as an embodied, effective, and theatrical practice. Having completed my PhD on the relationships between performance and the city for my postdoctoral fellowship, which I completed at York with Laura, I was interested in shifting my focus from the scale of the city and the theatrical dimensions of the urban space to the smaller scale of a house. I was fascinated by the idea of houses as material manifestations of the geopolitical conditions in which they are embedded, as well as of some of the deepest and most complicated longings of their builders, decorators, designers, and inhabitants. And so this is how I came to collaborating with Laura, who has been a crucial influence for me in thinking about the relationship between spatial aesthetics and political critique on this special issue on performance and housing.
And yeah, I came to this issue through Sunita, through learning a lot about the intersection of performance and housing through you and being inspired by your work. I'll just say that my own work has taken up sort of the politics of site-specific and immersive performance, particularly how female, queer, and racialized bodies constitute space, are often synonymous with space. And it brought up a lot of, my previous work brought up a lot of questions about the performance of domesticity and interior design, and particularly what it means politically to be physically enmeshed in our physical spaces and in our homes.
The contributions to this issue largely fall into one of two categories that we might call housing as performance on the one hand, and housing in performance on the other. When thinking about housing as performance, we and our contributors are thinking about how, for example, designing a house in a certain style might function as a kind of theatrical display that signals aspirations to a certain class, racial, or global belonging, which I explore in this issue by considering middle-class modernist housing in Mexico City in the 1960s as an aspirational performance of global modernity. We might also consider how the political intervention of occupying a square, a building, or a tree is linked to the temporality and iterability of this occupation, which Kimberly Skye Richards examines in relation to the construction of tiny houses and tree houses in the pathway of extractive development projects across Turtle Island. When thinking about housing as performance, we might also think of how, for example, curating eye-catching images of an apartment on Airbnb or the professionalism of a Zoom background, a topic considered by Bertie Ferdman in our issue, involves a kind of domestic scenography. In this issue, author Zoe Hayne-Jones also explores the restoration of a 200-year-old adobe home in Oaxaca as a performance of cultural memory, created through a temporal collaboration between humans, natural and artificial materials, and the land. Performance in housing is perhaps a bit more self-explanatory. Here, we're interested in plays and performances that are centrally engaged with the topic of housing and which reveal the medium of performance to be an especially productive way of reflecting on the socio-political dimensions of having, building, and living or not living in houses. For example, in this issue, Dylan Chenier reflects on the usefulness of verbatim theater for exploring the contemporary housing crisis in Kingston, while Katie Beswick considers the ethics of representing the conditions that led to the tragic Grenfell Tower in London on the theatrical stage. Maria Seyeri imagines the mobilization of the radionovela by Madrid-based migrant women's collective of domestic workers, Territorio Doméstico, to create homely spaces of support where the houses in which they live are far from homely. And Laura Levin examines the complex meditation on domestic environments in Hermat Ain and Rabia Nasir's art practices, in which the meeting of performer and spectator doubles as an encounter between visitor and inhabitant, citizen and foreigner, guest and host.
Thank you. And just to mention a couple of other things about the issue. So we're really interested in this issue in how ideas of house are shaped by the politics of nation state, which have different timelines of colonization, industrialization, economic and infrastructural development, as well as different cultural, linguistic, and national histories. So there are articles here that explore the stark differences in the way that housing is constructed in different contexts. So for example, Zoe Hayne-Jones and Sunita talk about remittance houses, or a transnational building practice wherein a migrant to the US sends funds to Mexico for the incremental building of a dream home. And other articles have taken up sort of how the right to housing is experienced differently depending on where one is located. We feature the work of Amer, for example, in the issue, which explores through a photo series called Guest House, the difficulties that she experienced as a woman professor in Islamabad trying to rent an apartment or a hotel room in her own name without a husband or father authorizing the stay and vouching for her character. At the same time, the issue explores shared experiences of dwelling that cross and contest geopolitical and cultural borders. We found a lot of examples of this in engaging with the broader context of housing crises that are shared globally, pieces taking up gentrification that displaces the urban poor, insufficient public funding devoted to uplifting vulnerable populations, among other issues. So a theme in the issue really is thinking about houses as an important zone for dreaming, for the realization, for the rehearsal, for the thwarting or abandonment of private and collective fantasies. And at the same time, it explores how these dream houses and all housing practices more generally in North America are haunted by the rupture that colonization created with existing indigenous modes of dwelling, especially as a consequence of establishing settler colonial domestic spaces. So Julie Nagam, who's interviewed here by Jasmine Sira, talks about her wigwam dome-based installations and how they center nomadic forms that challenge colonial demarcations of territory and envision a more symbiotic relationship between humans and the earth. And I think one of the really interesting things about the issue is that we are looking not only at how humans perform in their homes, but how the homes themselves perform, and to think about what it means to think about a house and home as lively entities as well. Finally, I just want to say, inspired by our conversations this morning about site writing, there's a lot of interesting site writing in this issue. And I sort of wish we had done a workshop as we were editing the issue, because I just speaking for myself, I might have come to like the editorial practice a little bit different in terms of thinking about this criticism about site. There are many different interesting performative interventions in terms of writing across the issue. Two of the most interesting that you might want to check out, one is the script in the issue, which is a script by Marie Brassard, who's an incredible Francophone playwright. It's a play called La Noirceur, or The Darkness, which is about an apartment building that she lived in. Do you want to say something about this, since you were the primary editor for this? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of exciting to me because La Noirceur is the first piece I saw from Marie Brassard, and I was just kind of electrified by the performance. She uses really interesting sound technologies in her work, and the play is about her experience and her imagination of the experiences of her neighbors as the building that she lived in downtown Montreal, as they got evicted from that building. And it's the 20th anniversary of this play this year, and it's the first time that it's been published in English as part of this special issue on performance and housing. And it's a really interesting example of what it means to think about a building performing or a building speaking on the stage.
Absolutely. And the other piece that I was going to mention is that in the online version of this issue, which you can access through Canadian Theatre Review Online, we have a beautiful slideshow which features work by a range of artists that are looking at kind of dwelling in a variety of different ways, and particularly kind of deterritorializing or defamiliarizing the notion of home or dwelling. And there are fabulous pieces in there, like works like IKEA Disobedience, where there are subjects from all over the world who are basically fucking with the idea of IKEA from a whole bunch of different perspectives, whether it's taking apart IKEA furniture and using it in ways that IKEA did not intend, or whether it's looking into the fantasies that something like IKEA promotes around heteropatriarchal normative ways of performing family, and pushing against that through interesting kind of photo series. There's a lot of cool stuff to engage with there. So I think that's the issue.
Yep.
And thank you so much for the space to share this with you. We have UTP has given us some copies to sell at a drastically reduced rate for $10. So if this is of interest to you, please come see us afterwards, and we'd love to talk with you about the issue and also give you an issue. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura and Sunita. So that's kind of the soft launch opening of why we're here. And for those of you who've just come in or not actively every day participating, just so you know, throughout the space, many of the people here are contributing works that relate and speak and talk back to these ideas of scenographies of site writing and critical spatial practices across the Americas. So please meet the artists, engage with the work. Maria Jose will be getting ready for a performance for the afternoon. That will be happening very soon in a bubble over there in the middle of the space. And there's, what's that? And T is here. So you'll get to meet everybody and engage with them and the work they've brought to the space for the week. And there's a little bit of snacks over there, and there's coffee from this morning, and there's actually a lot of coffee. So please help yourself, and we look forward to engaging with you in the time you're here for the afternoon. Thank you.